I'm Parni Jaggi, and this is going to be the conclusion of the synopsis of the novel that we are discussing, Oliver Twist, written by Charles Dickens. And in the previous video, we saw how the story turned and twisted and changed rapidly in the past episodes, and how we see that Nancy has overheard the conversation in which something is being told about Oliver's identity, his family background, and his birth. So we see now Nancy rushes to Rose Maylie's house where she wants to tell the entire story of the truth of Oliver's background. So we see Nancy reaches Rose Maylie and she confesses to Rose that she is the one who kidnapped Oliver on his errand for Mr. Brownlow. She relates that she overheard Monks tell Fagin that he is Oliver's brother. Monks wants Oliver's identity to remain unknown so that Monks himself can claim their family's inheritance. Monks could also kill Oliver if he could do so without endangering himself, and he has promised to pay Fagin if Oliver is recaptured. So Rose offers to help Nancy leave her life of crime. So here there is again a transformation of this character Nancy, because she, being a part of that gang of thieves, is suddenly showing her good side. Now here Nancy replies that she cannot leave that gang because she's attached to Sykes despite his bad and abusive ways, and she refuses the money which is offered by Rose. Before leaving, Nancy informs Rose that she can be found on London Bridge between 11 and 12 every Sunday night in case further any testimony or talk is needed. Now, not long after Nancy and Rose's meeting is held, Oliver tells Rose that he saw Mr. Brownlow on the street. Oliver and Mr. Giles have ascertained Brownlow's address, so Rose immediately takes Oliver there to meet him. Now, Mr. Grimwig is visiting when they arrive. Rose tells Brownlow that Oliver wants to thank him. Once Rose and Brownlow are alone, she relates the story that was told to her by Nancy about Oliver's background. Oliver is brought in to see Brownlow and Mrs. Bedwin. After their reunion, Brownlow and Rose relay Nancy's information to Mrs. Maylie and Losberne. Now Brownlow asks if he can include Grimwig in the matter, and Losberne insists that they could include Harry also. They agree to keep everything a secret from Oliver and decide to contact Nancy the following Sunday on London Bridge with the time she had informed. Now we see No Claypole and Charlotte flee to London after robbing Sowerbury. They stop at the Three Cripples Inn where they meet Fagin and Barney. Fagin invites No to join his gang, assigning him to rob children. No meets Fagin at his home. The Artful Dodger has been arrested already for attempting to pick a pocket. No's first job is to go to the police station to watch the Dodger's trial, and the Dodger, joking, is convicted and even sentenced to transportation. No hurries back to tell Fagin all about this. Now Fagin is visiting Sykes when Nancy tries to leave for London Bridge at 11 on Sunday. Fagin drags her into another room and restrains her for an hour, so he keeps her inside and stops her from going out. When he departs, Fagin asks about that Nancy conduct him downstairs. He whispers to her that he will help her leave the brute Sykes if she wants. So Fagin imagines that Nancy has wanted to meet a new lover that night. He is trying to imagine that she wants to go somewhere to meet some new person. He hopes even to persuade her to murder Sykes and bring her new lover into the gang so that he can solidify his control over her. Now he plans to watch her in order to discover the identity of this new love, hoping to blackmail her with this information. Fagin tells No that he'll pay him £1 to follow Nancy. The following Sunday, when Sykes is away, he takes No to Sykes' residence, and at 11, Nancy leaves the apartment. No then follows her at a discreet distance. But Nancy goes to the London Bridge to meet Mr. Brownlow and Rose, and then leads them to a separate, secluded spot. No hears Nancy beg them to ensure that none of her associates get into trouble because of her choice to help Oliver. They all agree to it, and Nancy tells them when they will most likely see monks visiting the public house. They hope to catch monks and force the truth about Oliver from him. Now, Nancy's description of monks actually surprises Mr. Brownlow, who appears to know him. Brownlow begs Nancy to accept their help, but she says she is chained, completely entrapped in her own life. He and Rose depart from there. They leave that place. Nancy cries violently and then heads for home. No hurries to Fagin's house to report all this incident to Fagin. Now, when Sykes delivers stolen goods to Fagin that night, Fagin and No relate the details of Nancy's trip. Fagin does not tell Sykes that Nancy insisted that her associates not get into trouble. So, in a rage, Sykes rushes home and beats Nancy to death while she begs for mercy. So, she is killed for her kindness. Now, in the morning, Sykes flees London. He leaves the place, sees suspicious looks everywhere. He feels everybody's trying to catch him. He stops at a country inn to eat, and seeing a bloodstain on Sykes' hat, a salesman grabs it to demonstrate the quality of his stain remover. Sykes then runs away from that inn also. He overhears some men talking about the murder at the post office. He wanders the road haunted by the image of Nancy's dead eyes. She died for no reason. A local barn catches fire then, and Sykes helps put out the fire. Sykes then decides to return to London and hide. Afraid that his dog, Bullseye, will give him away, he tries to drown the animal, but that also escapes. Now, Mr. Brownlow has captured Monks and brought him to the Brownlow home. Monk's real name is Edward Leaford. Now, Leaford is a young man. When his family forced him to marry a wealthy older woman, the couple eventually separated but did not divorce, and Edward and his mother went to Paris. Meanwhile, this Mr. Leaford fell in love with Agnes Fleming, a retired naval officer's daughter, who became pregnant with Oliver. Now, here again, there is a lot of revelation in the story. Now, the relative who had benefited most from Mr. Leaford's forced marriage repented and left Mr. Leaford a fortune. Mr. Leaford left a portrait of his beloved Agnes in Brownlow's care while he went to Rome to get his inheritance. Mr. Leaford's wife, hearing of his good fortune, travelled with Edward to meet him there. However, in Rome, Mr. Leaford took ill and died. Now, Brownlow reports that he knows that Monk's mother burned Mr. Leaford's will, so Mr. Leaford's newfound fortune fell to his wife and son. After his mother died, Monks lived in the West Indies on their ill-gotten fortune. Brownlow, remembering Oliver's resemblance to the woman in the portrait, had gone there to find Monks after Oliver was kidnapped. Meanwhile, the search for this person, Sykes, it continues. Now we see that in the last chapters of the story, Toby Crackit and this person, Tom Chitling, they flee, they run away to an island after Fagin and No are captured by the authorities, by the officers and police. Sykes' dog shows up at the house that serves as their hiding place. Sykes arrives soon after. Charlie Bates, one of their gangmates, arrives and attacks the murderer. Then there is a mob. Sykes climbs onto a roof. However, he loses his balance because he is all the time thinking about how he killed Nancy. The rope catches around his neck and he falls to his own death with his head strangulated. Now, Oliver and his friends travel to the town of his birth with Monks in tow to meet Mr. Grimwig. There, Monk reveals that he and his mother found a letter and a will after his father's death, which they destroyed. This letter, which was written by his father, was addressed to Agnes Fleming, which was Oliver's mother, and it contained a confession from Leaford about the affair of these two people. So the will stated that if his illegitimate child were a girl, she should inherit the estate unconditionally. And if it were a boy, which was Oliver, he would inherit the estate only if he committed no illegal or guilty act. Otherwise, Monks and his mother would receive the fortune. Upon learning of this daughter's shameful involvement with a married man, Agnes' father fled his hometown and changed his family's name. Agnes ran away to save her family the shame of her condition, and her father died. His other small daughter was taken in by a poor couple who also died. Now Mrs. Maylie took pity on the little girl and raised her as her niece. This child is actually Rose. So Mr. Bumble and Mrs. Bumble confess to their part in hiding Oliver's history, and Mr. Brownlow ensures that they never hold public office again. Harry has given up his political ambitions and has promised to live as a poor clergyman. And Rose agrees to marry Harry. Now, what happens to Fagin, the main villain of the story? Fagin is sentenced to death for the many crimes that he has committed. And on his miserable last night alive, Brownlow and Oliver visit him in the jail cell to find out the location of papers which could verify Oliver's identity, which Monks had actually entrusted to Fagin. Now, No is pardoned because he testifies against Fagin. Charlie turns to an honest life, becomes a successful grazier, a person who actually feeds cattle before they are taken to market. Brownlow arranges for Monk's property to be divided between Monks and Oliver. Monks travels to the New World, where he actually wastes away. He squanders all his share of the inheritance and lives a very horrible life that ultimately lands him in prison, where he dies. Brownlow adopts the cute, innocent orphan boy Oliver as his son, and he, Losberne, and Grimwig take up a residence near the rural church over which Harry presides. So this was a story of Oliver Twist with lots and lots of twists, turns, and surprises, and the growth of characters which lead us to the happy ending of Oliver. So this was a detailed chapter-wise synopsis of Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. We're going to be taking up the theme and analysis of the novel in the coming videos. Thank you for now.